Hey everyone, this is Mark Treichel with some breaking news from the NCUA board. The NCUA board held their first board meeting since Kyle Hauptman was named chairman by President Trump. And they can't act on much because regulations are frozen, right? So they originally had two items on their agenda, the NCUSIF briefing, which is where they release camel data, and that was kind of ho-hum. There was pretty much no change there, although the board did say we have to remain vigilant. Harper made some comments about code threes becoming code fours in complex credit unions over $500 million, which was interesting. But the big focus was two things: NCUA staff morale and the insurance fund, and the fact that there have been no losses on insured credit union deposits. Why are these two things paramount to NCUA right now? Because of the many President Donald Trump presidential orders that are impacting federal agencies, the hiring freeze, the buyout, the lack of independence for independent agencies, which I've discussed here, with the discussions about the possibility of the banking regulators being merged, including NCUA. By the way, I did a podcast yesterday with John McKechnie about the real and imagined fears as it relates to that, and time will tell how that works out. But there's the fear of reorganization, the fear of losing your job, et cetera, et cetera. Which reminds me, before I go any further, there's a quote that I used to refer to about reorganizations a lot, because reorganizations cause chaos, and they've been causing chaos since at least 2010 BC, when Petronius the Arbiter said, "We trained hard, but every time we formed up teams, we would be reorganized." I was to learn that we meet any new situation by reorganizing, and a wonderful method it can be for creating the illusion of progress while producing confusion, inefficiency, and demoralization. There's also another quote that relates to that I am reminded of, and it must be remembered that there is nothing more difficult to plan, more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to manage than the creation of a new system. For the initiator, that would be Trump and Musk, has the enmity, FYI, enmity means hatred, of all who would profit by the preservation of the old institutions, and merely lukewarm defenders and those who would gain by the new ones. And that's Niccolo Machiavelli. There's a lot of concern from NCUA staff about reorganization. There's a lot of concern about, is my job safe? And think about this. You've got probationary employees who are, generally speaking, brand new to government. And when they see these things in the press, they don't know the truth. They don't know the falsehoods. They don't know what NCUA is going to do. Some agencies are getting rid of all their probationary employees. Some agencies are accepting everybody who applies to the 8-month buyout. And there's chaos at NCUA right now. And you can tell that there's chaos because they focused on staff morale, because they made reference to the executive director saying that he heard that it was great to see the operating fee schedule come out from credit unions, from the NCUA board. And why? Because it's mundane. The NCUA staff are getting deluged with press about the inadequacies of federal government, about fraud, waste, and abuse, which I think is very minimal at NCUA. I think the IG there does an amazing job. Editorial comment. And the reality is there is chaos, there is concern, and NCUA staff being pleased to see something mundane, as opposed to getting messages saying, you need to tell me the 5 things you achieved this week. There's chaos there, and it's clear that NCUA board is showing leadership by making statements that they have open door policies to remain calm. The other side of remaining calm is they don't want a run to happen at credit unions, just like the banks don't want runs to happen at banks. And there is a podcast I want to refer you to in that regard. It's the Banking with Interest podcast. Had an episode today called "What the Hell is Going On?" Part 2, merging OCC and FDIC. So they talk about the mergers, but they talk about all the weird messages that the host and the guest are getting as it relates to the insurance fund of the DIF. Kyle Hauptman made reference to that he was on Reddit looking up things about NCUA, although I couldn't find them when I looked. I'm sure they're out there, but they're getting messages about the safety of the insurance fund. And the fund is safe. Have less than $250,000 at a bank or at a credit union, you're going to get your money back. So remain calm as it relates to that. But it's clear they want staff to find some solace in the fact that the board isn't going to overreact any more than they might have to related to these things, but it remains to be seen how many people do leave NCUA. I've spoke to the fact that I think exam cycles are going to get elongated. I think staff turnover will go up. There'll be people. What happens in these instances is people who can leave and have other alternatives just go pursue them. A lot of people will be leaving NCUA because of that. There'll be people leaving because of the fact they don't want to take it anymore. They'll be leaving because, hey, I was going to retire in June, so I'd just give me my 6 months anyway. And then what remains to be seen is how NCUA will respond as it relates to probationary employees. The other takeaway I want to mention here is originally there were two items on the NCUA agenda, the NCUSIF briefing and an item to make somebody, presumably, almost certainly, Harper vice chair at NCUA. Now, there's no requirement to have a vice chair, but Hauptman had decided to do it. Then it mysteriously disappeared from the agenda. They didn't talk about it. I put a post on right before the board meeting when I realized this, that NCUA had pulled it. And by the way, I don't believe they complied with the sunshine rules relative to that. If something gets pulled, they're supposed to say, hey, we had to pull it because of matters that we can't get into, and we didn't have time to notify the public, but we've pulled that from the agenda. I think there was a conscious decision not to do that because I'm sure that the general counsel would have advised them to do that. It's interesting they chose not to do it, or that there was an error and they didn't do that. But I had posited that they could have voted by notation vote and then talked about the fact they did it. But since there was no reference to how Harper being the vice chair, there was no reference to the fact that they were contemplating it. I believe Hauptman decided it wasn't wise to make a Democrat the vice chair right now because of the state of politics, or somebody told him that he shouldn't do it and they pulled it. And I'm not exactly sure when that fell off. I noticed it this morning, and that is very, very curious. All right, so here's about 10 minutes of the NCUA board talking about the safety of the insurance fund, talking about the importance of staff morale. All good news for NCUA staff. It was a feel-good meeting from that perspective. Lastly, if you're going to be at GAC and you want to chat, let me know. I will see you there. I'll be there Monday and Tuesday, and we'll be recording some short snippets for the podcast and reporting that here via the podcast. All right. Without further ado, here is the NCUA board.
Good morning. I call this meeting the NCUA Board to order. This is my first board meeting as chairman. It's an honor to serve as the 13th chairman of NCUA and advance the priorities for both growth, opportunity, and innovation in the credit union system. I want to thank the president for his trust in me. I also want to thank my colleague Todd Werfer for his service through some challenging times for NCUA and the credit union system. So over the last few weeks, there have been a flurry of executive orders affecting the federal workforce, including us. Some of those directives may bring changes to NCUA. All of us at this table understand that change and uncertainty can be challenging for a number of parties, the credit union system, stakeholders, and most definitely NCUA employees. All of us at NCUA, including the board, are diligently assessing how these announcements may affect NCUA, our operations, regulatory structures, and our work streams. My colleagues at NCUA may be watching. The work each of you does every day keeps our credit union system thriving and keeps our credit union members safe. Also, loads of misinformation and rumor out there. I've spent some time recently reading forums on Reddit that touch on NCUA or federal employees, and there is some crazy stuff out there. There's people moving their money out of banks and credit unions because they're buying Treasury bonds or gold because they think they hear that federal deposit centers is going away, and that's not even one of the crazy rules out there. Let's continue to stay focused on our mission, and we, the board, will continue to support your work as we navigate any changes together. Thank you for your patience and your dedication to NCUA. One thing that struck me, actually, our executive director mentioned how much NCUA staff like seeing an email about this year's fee schedule for credit unions. And I was curious why a fairly routine, mundane topic would generate a positive reaction. It was precisely because it was mundane, and now it made sense to me. It was a sign that the big picture hasn't changed. NCUA business continues. The normalcy of it was positive and reassuring. When I asked any of my 1,200 colleagues here at NCUA, reach out to me anytime by phone, Teams, email. Well, we on the board don't have any more info or White House directives than anyone else. I'm happy to talk to you about problems and possible solutions. I'll tell you what I know and don't know. And the people we work for, the 142 million Americans who pay into the Share Insurance Fund, know that NCUA is unchanged. There are 4,500 credit unions to examine, and most importantly, pointing to the Share Insurance Fund. That is the true north for each of us on the board. Our deposit insurance is unchanged. The exams are continuing, just like the rest of the work here. Be assured we have not taken our eye off the ball. We're aware that uncertainty surrounding one's employer and a job isn't new for credit union members. Many credit unions were founded by employee groups of companies that no longer exist. Also, just in the 4 years I've been on the board, we've lost 1,000 credit unions in this country. We're aware that most Americans, the people who pay my salary, live the daily reality of uncertainty in their workplace situation. In a normal year, like this year, about 10 million Americans lose their job in the normal churn. 4 years ago, 21 million Americans lost their job in 1 month. So I want to send a message that we understand the way the real world works and the people who pay us. We understand their reality. So maybe just grant us a bit of grace as we adjust to work through these changes here at NCUA. And again, your money is safe at the insurance fund, and it's safe at NCUA Insured Credit Union. Our NCUA staff are professionals, and credit union members should know the management around here has worked around the clock to ensure we still meet the needs of America's credit union members and my outstanding NCUA cohort. And finally, I know as chairman, I can steer some priorities in the agency, but any concrete actions require board approval, and that requires some measure of compromise on the part of both parties. Discussions among my colleagues have always been in good faith and a spirit of cooperation during my tenure on the board. So in plenty of give and take. None of us gets everything we want, but all of us get usually something we wanted. I look forward to continuing that collaboration with my board colleagues now that I'm chair. That concludes my remarks. I now recognize board member Harp.
Mr. Chairman, and again, let me offer my sincerest congratulations on your position. I will also say this, as you and I discussed the other day, there are many burdens of being chairman that you really don't have an idea until you sit in the seat. And again, I offer to you my hand to help guide you, just as past NCUA chairmen have helped guide me as part of the kitchen cabinet over the years. Second, I want to echo our NCUA team of professionals is our greatest asset and resource. They protect people, they protect deposits, and they protect taxpayers through losses at the Share Insurance Fund. We need to keep that in mind, and we need to continue to demonstrate the compassion that we have worked to build at this agency. And I'm very proud that we've worked to build at this agency over the last several years. As a servant leader, my job again is to listen, to learn, and to find ways to lead that bring us back to where the chairman suggested, and that is consensus and compromise. I do value all of the work of our NCUA team. I also do want to remind everybody, as the chairman said, that your deposits at federally insured credit unions are safe up to at least $250,000. That hasn't changed. That's not going to change. And we're not going to take our eyes off of that at any point in time. With that, I'll end my comments here with what I always end my emails to staff with, and that is be safe, be well, be kind.
Well said. Board member Osfield, you recognize.
Thank you. Excuse me. I also want to congratulate Chair Hopman on his new role, and thank Board Member Harper, former Chair Harper, for his leadership. I do appreciate the board's ability to continue to work together on tough issues. We did so last year, and I think we will continue to do that this year and in the coming years. And I want to echo some of the comments that have already been made, but I have been deeply troubled by the attacks on the federal workforce who are here to serve the American people. And speaking directly to my NCUA colleagues, I want you to know that as a former career public servant myself, I have utmost respect and admiration for the work that you do at the NCUA. A lot of you have been in federal service for your entire careers. You are veterans. Many of you have private sector experience as well. So I just want to reiterate my reverence for the work that you do and the dedication with which you do it. Without you all, we would not have a strong examination program. Questions from credit unions and consumers alike would go unanswered. You wouldn't be able to charter new credit unions or process the membership applications or provide technical assistance or issue guidance to the credit union industry. And the list goes on. So thank you for what you do day in and day out. For extremely important, as my colleagues have also said, and I think the continuity of staff and our ability to keep our eyes on the prize, keep our eyes on the mission is extremely important. I also want to reiterate my open door policy. When I joined the board last year, I noted that, and I want to reiterate it right now. So as you and your teams navigate changes here at NCUA, as you navigate new issues that we may come across from a substantive standpoint, really with anything, please feel free to reach out to me and my staff. I really do have an open door policy. And again, thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you.
Yeah. I think we agree one thing about it. This isn't the Pentagon, the giant 2 million employee thing where like almost no one ever even sees the Secretary of Defense. This isn't the Federal Reserve where it's kind of hard to get an audience with the Federal Reserve chair, even if you're pretty senior at the Fed. We're pretty easy to reach and talk to. I think that's a good thing.
Okay, that's it from Hollywood, Florida, the NCUA board reporting that staff morale is important. Staff is the number one resources. Your deposits are safe. And one last quote, Winston Churchill, one of my favorite quotes and one of my daughter's favorite quotes. I said it so much when she was a runner back in high school and college, she got a tattoo of this Winston Churchill quote, which is, when going through hell, keep going. That's it. That's a wrap. Mark Treichel signing off with flying colors. If you're at GAC and see me, let's chat. Talk to you soon.